The developing of warehousing is absolutely key to the successful logistics sector. I'm delighted to say here at Multimodal 2026 at the NEC in Birmingham, I'm joined today by two experts from Prologis who are going to talk to me about, well, everything you need to know. It's energy, it's robotics, it's how to future-proof a warehouse. Who can predict what warehouse needs are going to be in the future? Well, it's these guys' jobs to do that. So let's get straight into it.
Welcome to Logistics Business Conversations, the podcast exploring the ideas and insights shaping today's logistics industry. Featuring leading voices from across the sector, we examine key trends, emerging challenges, and the innovations driving the future of supply chains.
Hi, Danny. Welcome to Multimodal. Thanks for joining us in Logistics Business Conversations.
Morning, Peter. Great to be here.
Now, we've got a lot to cover today. Really delighted to say that we'll be joined by a colleague of yours as well, James. So we're interested to hear what his views are too. But just to kick off with, can you tell us what landlords can do to help the customers get up and running faster in today's logistics landscape?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that customers are looking to get into buildings as fast as possible in this day and age, driven by next day deliveries, and the consumer wanting to be in buildings quicker has become really important. And this is where the Essentials program developed from. So it's a program that helps customers to get operational as quickly and cost effectively as possible, but making sure that the spaces are compliant to use and operate from as soon as they can.
Is it a question of so the due diligence that you carry out is to anticipate what the customer's likely needs are going to be?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a full range of customers, and some customers, to be fair, know exactly what they're doing when they move into a warehouse, and they're doing it very frequently across the globe. But we have another, huge amount of customers that don't move into warehouses all that frequently. And the experience of us being able to do that and doing that every day means that we can bring our skill set and be an extension of their business.
What are the main topics that you're addressing when you're coming to giving the customer what they need? Is energy right at the top of the list there?
Yeah, I think it all starts with the operation, really. We like to understand what customers are actually going to do with the space. So the benefit of us as an integrator, we don't have any products that we have to sell or to offer to a customer. We can have a look at the whole market and we compare the right solution with the customer requirement, which is really important to be that trusted advisor for a customer moving into a new space.
And I guess flexibility is key. Your customers will be looking for that. It's a volatile market that they're operating into, and sometimes the parameters change without their input on that. So you have to create a space in which they can change and they can continue to be successful in business.
Yeah, absolutely. And being linked with a developer, that almost starts before we know who the customer is. So the way that our buildings are designed, they're designed with some flexibility for any operator to move into, whether that be the amount of power, the amount of solar that they can have on that building, but also further with the fit out. When we're designing lighting systems and sprinkler systems for customers, that needs to be not just beneficial for the first customer in that building. It needs to have a long-term plan for who the next customer might be in the next lease.
Hi, James. It's great that you can come and join us today on Logistics Business Conversations.
Thank you for having me, Peter. I'm delighted to be here.
What would logistics be without warehouses that are ready to run, ready to roll? And your job is to predict what the customer needs today and tomorrow. How do you go about that?
I mean, the corporate slogan has always been ahead of what's next. And we all know logistics is a really fast-paced, moving industry. It never stops, and the customer demand behind that never stops as well. So it's something we always have to be on our toes to be able to do, to keep our stock for today relevant, but also relevant for 5, 10, 15 years in the future. I think probably what has remained the same are the base fundamentals of what customers require. Really good, resilient access to our parks, and time is obviously money. Really good, solid fundamentals of build quality. They're kind of the prerequisites that we built our brand on and have always stayed there. I think where we're now kind of adapting and continuing to move the specification forward is probably really on a two-way, bifurcation of markets. There's always huge demand for warehouses from 3PLs for contract logistics. They have to be really nimble. They have to be able to move into buildings quickly. and contracts that are ever changing product sizes, SKUs, kind of fulfillment demands on those. So there's one part of our business that's really focused on having buildings that are very quick to operate, providing fit out in those, racking through our essentials business that my colleague Danny is, fantastic at, and helping us bring our understanding and knowledge base with that. But then I think the other part of the sector is where you're seeing customers make really strategic long-term business decisions. And they're generally looking at buildings of scale. And I think with that, we're starting to see the technology that they're investing into those facilities really increase as well. So we're seeing a lot more automation in those buildings. And then we're having to develop to fit that type of technology and automation, because these customers are taking 15, 20, 25-year commitments on those. So we've got to be able to build a building that's capable of going with them for that journey.
And Danny, if I can return to you, I want to ask, I'm naive in thinking that the touch point between yourselves and your customers is in a narrow window at the front end, but actually much more than that, the long-term relationship.
Yeah.
How do you foster these relationships and keep them strong?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's fair to say that our first interaction with customers tends to be when they move into a warehouse. That's the big bang for them. They've got an empty warehouse that they need to fill and get operational. But the Essentials program is there to help customers all through their journey. So whether the customer has a change in contract or a change in product mix that's going into that warehouse, we are there to support with the latest innovations and the latest technologies to make sure that we can move with the customer demand. And that goes end to end as well. Unfortunately, customers also leave our buildings, hopefully to move to a bigger Prologis space. But we also try and make that as pain-free as possible so that we can help customers to move out of buildings in an efficient way and cost effectively as well.
No, Danny, it's a very exciting sector in which we're working. We always say that. We always think that. And it's really interesting now robotics and automation have become very much part of the heart of logistics operations. What do you do with your properties to ensure that they're future ready for such technologies that are existing and also coming along the line?
Yeah, I think that the key to that is making sure that the infrastructure is right from day one. So having best-in-class buildings with suitable power availability for the size of property is really important. Touching on automation, the Essentials program has its own solution design team based out of our Amsterdam HQ, European HQ. And their role is to make sure that we compare the best solutions with the customer requirement to make sure that automation is a very, very broad topic. And there's many players, many of which are at the exhibition at the NEC here. It's important with that level of investment to make sure that the customer is comfortable that they're getting the right type of solution for A, their budget, and B, their operation.
And so, Danny, we talked about the Essentials team. Tell us what your interface with the customer is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's fair to say that Essentials don't only get involved with a customer when they decide to take a lease. So they don't sign the lease and then we come into work. We actually get involved much, much sooner with customers to help them space plan, make sure that the building is the right size and has the right requirements for their needs, not just on day one, but in the future as well. So, we see ourselves as playing a big part in the leasing journey with customers and giving them the confidence that there's someone here as a trusted advisor to help them get operational as and when they decide to sign the lease. I think it's probably a good time to point out that 30% of what we do in the UK is in a non-Prologis building. So the services that we offer predominantly for Prologis customers in Prologis buildings, but many other customers outside of the Prologis portfolio have the same issues. And our team is of such a scale now that we can support those customers as well.
Sort of going in as almost like a white label service.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm interested in talking to you and Danny about energy use and energy requirements, energy supply. Could you tell us how the landscape is changing, James, around energy demands and around legislation as well that can often change and change the parameters of a business, the way it uses energy?
Yeah, certainly. I think at the moment on the development landlord side, access to energy is one of the biggest risks for a project. It is, it's grid connections, the availability of capacity within the network is a challenge. And then once you've got those sites connected, it's being able to have the supply that customers want. ultimately customers want energy security. And that is, particularly if they're taking long-term commitments, it's not about being able to meet their energy demands now. It's them looking at where their business is going over the next 5 to 10 years and having that resilience already within their control to be able to meet that. We're starting to see a number of transportation and hauliers start to dip their toe into electric HGVs. I think the rise of the electric car that you and I might be driving is certainly becoming more prevalent as well. And all these uses need energy demands. And then as we're starting to see across the piece, we're starting to see customers invest into automation and things like that. And that has a bigger draw on energy. So it's very, very topical. It's a legislation challenge and a national challenge as well in terms of, the grid connections, the infrastructure that powers that. But I think things that we're seeing that can mitigate some of the risk around that, we're investing heavily into solar. All our units now commit EPCA plus, which means approximately 25% of the roof is covered to give the customer a really meaningful start on that. All our buildings are designed to be able to take effectively a full roof of solar. And when we talk about a full roof, that's probably actually 70% of the area, because there's still roof lights you need to be able to have there. You need safe working room for maintenance and installation of these panels. But on some of these buildings, a 70% roof cover will power thousands of houses, just to put it into context of the generation to capabilities. And for customers that are using automation, it can pretty much encapsulate that. So I think we would love to be in a world where we're able to see more and more solar going on our roofs. I think that the challenge beyond that is then having the grid to support that, because at times you will overgenerate. And when you're overgenerating energy, the natural flow of that is to go back to the grid. And in some parts of the UK, the grid isn't set up to be able to receive that energy back, and that can cause challenges in it. So I think there's certainly a will from the customers that we deal with to try and use solar more effectively to manage their energy costs, but to manage their resilience. And I think what we're seeing as a sector is that the infrastructure and the legislation that surrounds that is starting to come along, but it's difficult to turn that type of beast overnight. So I think that's the immediate horizon challenge.
Danny, we previously talked today about energy. It seems to be the top of a lot of people's challenges. What are the other areas that are influencing the warehousing sector currently?
We're seeing a big shift in speed to operation. And we touched on it earlier about how customers want to be operational quicker. And we're actually seeing a bit of a change in the market where there are customers in the market that want to be operational and accepting pallets from day one. And that goes back to our previous point about making these buildings almost ready to go. So putting in LED lighting, putting in sprinkler systems that can be adapted for many customer needs is one thing. And that was the start for us at Prologis. We're actually taking that a step further now. We're speculatively putting racking into buildings, generic racking systems that will suit a multitude of different customer requirements. And we've seen that work at multiple occasions where a customer has got product on its way. It's on the sea, it's coming from the Middle East. They need a space, not only a warehouse in the right location, but they need it to be ready to accept those pallets on day one of their lease. They haven't got 3, 6, 9 months to get the warehouse up and ready. They need that space functional from day dot.
And Danny, I have to say, in my mind, when I think of Prologis, I think of the actual building structure itself. But of course, you have the yard as well as your responsibility. How is the makeup of the yard changing? If your customers changing demands, have we seen more, for example, electric EV charging areas? Are we seeing a slight change in the emphasis on employee parking, maybe a reduction in that? Is work patterns shift?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that every customer is unique in that respect. But we do see customers who are now on their journey of electrification of fleets, and particularly in more urban areas. In now London markets, we see customers who are more switched on to that type of technology.
James, we're sitting here in Birmingham currently, in the heart of the logistics valley of the UK, the heart of the industry in the Midlands here, not far away from Durft in Northamptonshire. It's an extraordinary facility. I haven't been for a few years, so tell me, would I be surprised if I turned up today if I was developing?
Yeah, I think you certainly would, or I'd hope you would. And I think we'd probably like to say that you'd be surprised on a few different bases. Really.
How so?
I think certainly the scale of the park has moved on. We had a really good positive year last year. We did 3 build to suit deals and let one of our speculatively developed warehouses to GXO. And those 3 build to suits we did covered just under 2 million square feet. So quite a significant impact. And Durft itself actually did just under 8.5% of total UK grade A take-up, which is quite impressive for a single asset park, if you like. So I think you would even be totally impressed with the change of the scale. Certainly the Marks and Spencer's project there, which is their new flagship central distribution warehouse for their food business at 1.3 million square feet adjacent the M1. I think will be one of the most eye-catching buildings that shed spotters, as we all are driving up and down the motorway network, will see. And the design is really pushed on with that. But I think we'd like to think that the way we've also invested in the amenity on the park, the green open spaces, try to continually evolve our thought process around the welfare and offering for the staff in the park and the communities around that.
But it does sound like very much that human beings are factored in all of it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, because the warehouses they're nothing without the staff that work in them. And you can have the best located product from a logistics point of view, but if you haven't got the talent pool that supports that, and you can connect that talent pool to the park from their house, you have a much greater challenge. So as Durft has evolved, the public transport has come along with it. Our optionality around that, we're now looking at electric scooters and geo hubs to be able to connect those to the likes of Rugby and Daventry around it and Halton Village.
Just getting the personnel
But
in
yeah,
and
the
out.
personnel, but also trying to break down barriers of how they get there so that they're not solely reliant on the car or solely reliant on one public transport route. You want to give people options so that they can get to work in the best solution for them. And that helps our customers not only attract talent, but then retain it. And it also helps them compete not solely on cost, where it's come and work for me because I'm paying 10p more an hour. It's come and work for me because I've got great access to transport view, and I've got lots of other things around my brand. We've got football pitches at Durft, we've got seating areas, we've got walking routes, things like that just hopefully build the self-esteem of the staff there. And gives them that feeling, this is a great place to work. I want to continue working there. And we've been trying to evolve that because I think that's really important within our sector to raise the bar of that and to really position it so that it's taken more seriously along the likes of business park offices or, central business district offices that have got huge arrival experiences and an array of amenity that, is falling over themselves.
James, if I can ask you, I've heard the term box being applied to warehouses, and it does it such a disservice. It's so much more than a box, isn't it? So tell me about innovation within the sector.
I think you're right. It doesn't give it credit where it's due. And to a large extent, in the total built environment of the world, these buildings are steel portal frames with a layered cladding system around. So they do look rather simplistic comparison to, some of the office developments in the UK. But the M&S building, for example, is hopefully, when completed, is targeted to be the largest BREEAM outstanding building on the planet. So in its own right there, that tells you the sustainable technology that has gone into that design to hopefully deliver that as the accreditation behind it. There's an array of really simple technology that continues to improve and gets layered on, rainwater harvesting to run all the toilets in a building now so that they're completely off grid for the most part, for the fact that we have quite a large amount of rain in the UK. The solar technology we've already previously touched on. We're now looking at the way that, we're delivering buildings with Wi-Fi connectivity day one, so customers can move in and they've got fiber resilience around them to be able to run their WMS and algorithmic networks that they process. So these buildings are
playing also into the growth of the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all more reliant on ChatGPT. That requires better bandwidth. It requires, more reliance on Wi-Fi networks. So, secondary lines being put in to provide that fail-safe technique every single car parking space is ducted to be able to be turned into an EV charging space in the future.
Future ready, in effect.
Yeah, we're delivering 10% now, and that's probably, most people would probably only have 10% of their staff with an electric car. But in 10 years' time, could they have, 100%? And if we've put the infrastructure in behind the curtain already, it's a lot easier to then cable that up rather than having to dig the car park up to put the ducting in further down the line. So there's lots of little things being layered within that, ground source heat pumps coming into fruition now, so that you're removing gas out of buildings to try and make people a lot more reliant on electricity. You can then do that, more sustainably than gas. You can also use solar to enhance that. So it's lots of incremental steps that people don't necessarily see, but are starting to make a meaningful difference, I think. And the whole sector is along with that.
We're sitting in the NEC in Birmingham at 2036. We're 10 years in the future. What does the warehouse environment look like around the UK?
What's next in logistics? We're asking the experts. In our Crystal Ball segment, industry leaders share their predictions for the future.
Personally, I would like to think that 10 years from now, the sector will be a much more recognised sector in the UK. I think it's starting to be taken seriously on a political and national level, and we're often referred to as critical infrastructure.
Yes.
Because we are the wheels. I mean, we're a very small part of that in delivering the properties that allow our customers to keep those goods moving. But everything that more or less people touch in their daily lives has some shape or form travelled through one of the customers here today, or come through a warehouse either Prologis or a competitor of ours have developed. And people's reliance on that is only going to, increase, in my opinion. So I think in 10 years' time, I'd like to see that we're really taken, seriously. And that even goes down to the jobs, etc. Not many children are aware of what happens in warehousing and logistics. And I would probably hazard a guess, if you spoke to a lot of school leavers, they wouldn't be considering careers in warehousing or logistics. So I'd like to think in 10 years' time, it's an absolutely, day-to-day job that is there, and people understand it, recognize it, and it's an aspirational career for people to go into. So I think there's two important parts there. I think where we will probably see on some of the technology side, I think we'll see more automation and robotics being used. The payback and the technology on those is growing day by day. So I think there will be a bigger trend towards that. And I think we'll also start to see things like rail freight becoming more prevalent, because recruitment of drivers across the UK is a really tough challenge. And the average age of drivers across the UK is only getting higher. And it's difficult to replace those at the younger end of the scale. So I think the ability to move goods off the road network and onto the rail network is something that I think we'll start to see customers really latch onto. And over the last 10 years, Durft was one of the first and only rail freight terminals in the UK, but now there are 4 or 5 of significant scale dotted around the UK. And I think you'll see a few more on those, and critically be able to connect the ports with the warehouse belt in the middle of the UK and the rail freight terminals to move goods much more efficiently and on scale as well.
James, I'll happily invite you back here in 2036 to put you on the spot, find out how close you are to reality. It's been a great pleasure talking with you. Thank you very much indeed, James Henstock, and also to Danny for coming here today and talking with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Peter.